Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's the first time you are visiting. Thank you for joining me today. If you have not already guessed by the title, today I'm going to be doing a video all about fragrances that I actually use in my collection. And this video was inspired by a tag that I've seen going around called Show Me Your Dent. And I actually really struggled to pick the correct fragrances for this video because I do have a pretty vast collection and it's quite difficult to make a dent in any of my fragrances, just purely because I do have so much choice. I decided to pick out fragrances that I have used about 30 to 40% of. But to be honest with you, whenever I see a fragrance, even with about 10% of the bottle used, that does make me really proud and shows me that I really love the fragrance. And I also just want to let you know that I'm also not an over sprayer. I roughly only do about 4 to 5 sprays most of the time anyway. There are some occasions where I will opt for a good 10 sprays, but I do suffer with headaches, specifically migraines, so I try not to spray too much perfume. So with that being said, it is hard for me to make any kind of decent dent within my fragrances. So if you like the sound of this video and you're curious on what perfumes in my collection that I've made the biggest dents in, then please do keep on watching. Before we get started, I just want to show you a couple of fragrances that I love and their dents, because the majority of my fragrances in my collection that are fragrances that I also love have this level of dent in them. However, they're not included in this video. So as you can see here, this Et Voila from Thio Cabanel has a reasonable dent, and also Angel's Share by Kilian has a reasonable dent for my collection anyway. So the majority of my fragrances have this level of dent within them. However, the fragrances that I'm going to be discussing in this list have bigger dents. So first up on my list might not come as a surprise to many of you because I've been featuring it in a few videos over the last few months, and it is by Une Night Nomade, and this one is Jardins de Maitre. And I absolutely adore this fragrance, and I feel this is a pretty substantial dent, especially as I have not had this in my collection for that long, and it is a 100ml bottle, so I'm pretty impressed with the dent here. And it does make sense because I absolutely adore Jardins de Maitre. I think it is one of the most special fragrances in my collection, and I am totally drawn to it. It is a beautiful kind of sticky date and rose based fragrance. It has almond, it has saffron, it has cardamom, and it has nutmeg. So when I think about what my kind of ideal fragrance is, this is definitely up there in the type of notes that I am really drawn to. To me, Jardins de Maitre is a very jammy rose, but then you've got that really sweet and sticky date note in there, which is so delicious and takes us into a gourmand direction without making it too edible. And then you have that gorgeous saffron note, which I really enjoy in fragrances, which also gives it a super unique twist. Combine that with the cardamom, nutmeg, and almond. Wow, this is a special one. And the fact that I've made such a big dent in this already, I think I'm probably going to run out of this likely between mid-year, depending on what other fragrances I start to use. But yeah, this one definitely gets a special mention just because, like I said, I haven't had it that long and I've made such a substantial dent in it. If you do want to hear more about Jardins de Maitre, maybe a more detailed review, do search my channel because, like I said, I've spoken about it a lot. But it's super, super special. You can order multiple different sizes. So you can get anything from a small sample to a 10ml, 25ml, 50ml, and 100ml. And I love that about the brand. I feel like they make it a lot more accessible for many people. So depending what your budget is, you can definitely sample different fragrances within their collection. Anyway, Jardins de Maitre, definitely a huge dent and a fragrance I absolutely love. Next up is Glossier U. And this fragrance I used to reach for a lot more than I do now. And I don't know if you can see where the fill is, but it is about here. So I've used more than half of this, and it is just one of the most beautiful, clean girl aesthetic, musky, powdery iris fragrances. It is super chic for the price point. I think at the time when I purchased it, it was £45. And to me, this smells very elevated, very chic and high end. Now, the reason why I have such a big Dent is this is such an easy reach. I feel like you could wear this for any occasion. It's not gonna offend anyone, but it's gonna leave you smelling incredible. It's not necessarily a your skin but better fragrance because it is definitely iris dominant. It is so beautiful. Again, this is another fragrance that I would love my house to smell of. I'd love my laundry detergent to smell of. And it is a very powdery, musky, iris-based fragrance that definitely smells a little bit cool and would fit in with that clean girl aesthetic. I need to start reaching for this a lot more because I'm so drawn to the clean smelling fragrances right now. But yeah, this one definitely has a hefty dent in my collection. And when I run out of this one, I will 100% be repurchasing it. So yeah, that was Glossier U. So the next fragrance I've definitely gone a little bit crazy on because it's another one that I haven't had in my collection for too long. And it is none other than Room 1015 Cherry Punk. And I have definitely mentioned this on my channel a few times. Hopefully you can see the dent there. I feel like I'm nearly halfway through this, and this is a 50ml size bottle. Just a little disclaimer, I did take a 3ml decant out of this, which I sent off to one of my friends because she wanted to try it. But Cherry Punk for me is such an easy reach cherry based fragrance. And if you watch my channel, you probably know that cherry isn't one of my favorite notes, but I absolutely adore this creation because it's a great mixture of that sour, fruity cherry, but then balanced out with a kind of cool girl, rock chick vibe leather notes. It also has saffron, Szechuan pepper, mimosa, violet, and lots of other notes to complement this fragrance. But to me, it is definitely a very sour cherry with the undertones of leather, which are prominent right from the initial spray. I'm getting a beautiful sweetness throughout, which I think comes from the tonka that is in here. It has a little bit of patchouli, which isn't super prominent. But aside from the notes, I think this is such a sexy yet girly / cool fragrance. It's almost a no-brainer. If I was going out on a date night or I was going out with the girls, I would probably reach for something like Cherry Punk because it absolutely gets the compliments too. And I just think it is very likable. And yeah, I just personally love it, if you can't tell already by the dent. So if you do love a cherry fragrance and you also like a note of leather, I would highly recommend checking out Cherry Punk from Room 1015. Next up, we have a fragrance from Palmar, and this one is Guimauve Dino. And I have mentioned this one on my channel before. I feel like this is a pretty reasonable dent for my collection. And this is just the most gorgeous orange blossom fragrance. And if you love scents similar to Love Don't Be Shy, Cintra by Memo, Ariana by Parfums de Maitre, then you will probably enjoy this one because in essence, it is an orange blossom dominant scent with lots of sugar. Guimauve Dino is definitely a beautiful girly gourmand fragrance. It's orange blossom, it's sugar, and it's vanilla. So you're gonna smell very attractive, but it also reminds me of an orange blossom Turkish delight, or maybe like an orange blossom nougat. Oh, I just think this one is so perfect, so feminine, and it definitely will garner you compliments. So if you are an orange blossom lover and you like your orange blossoms sweet, I would highly recommend checking this one out because I absolutely adore it. It's a little bit more simple and linear than something like Kilian's Love Don't Be Shy. But I appreciate that about this scent profile, the fact that it is really just dominant on that orange blossom and sugar note. And if I want something a little bit simple, I want something girly, and I want something for the hot weather, this one is such an easy reach for me. So expect to see this dent go down even more this year. But yeah, this is a very gorgeous fragrance in my collection. The next fragrance is Cloud by Ariana Grande. And I don't reach for this one as much anymore, but you can absolutely see the dent in this bottle. And I think this is such an incredible celebrity perfume. And I'm sure you've heard so much about Cloud already, but I think it's stunning, to be quite honest with you. And if you do like the OG Baccarat Rouge, this is such a good substitute. They smell a little bit different, but to be honest, the sillage of this, I almost can't recognize the two. And there's been times when I've been wearing this and I've been asked if I'm wearing Baccarat Rouge, and there's been times where I'm wearing Baccarat Rouge and I've been asked if I'm wearing Cloud. So you can decide based on that. I think when you smell them side by side on paper, they do smell a little bit different, but for me, the sillage, they are very similar. I'd say Cloud is a little bit lighter, a little bit more feminine, and a little bit more creamy. It does have a whipped cream note in here, which is gorgeous. It has coconut and pear, but there's no denying that they do have similarities. But I used to just always put this in my handbag and top up throughout the day. Sometimes I'd be wearing Baccarat Rouge and I would just pop this in my handbag and top that up. Probably why I've got a bit of an association between the two, but Cloud gets so many compliments. It's very likable and very mass appealing, and this is one that I would definitely continue to have in my collection if I do go through the bottle, because like I said, it's such a great easy reach, and I feel like it's a good one to have in the handbag. The next fragrance is by Clean Reserve, and this is Skin, the Reserve blend, and I'm just going to turn the bottle so you can see the dent. I absolutely adore this fragrance. It took me a while to get my hands on it. I can't remember who hyped it up. I think it was actually Jaclyn Hill, and then it was sold out for so long. And I can see why people love this so much. It's the perfect girly, clean girl aesthetic perfume. I reach for this fragrance so much, whether it be out of the shower, to wear before bedtime, or yesterday this was my scent of the day. It's just a very inoffensive fragrance. It's gonna make you smell incredible and fresh, and it does have a girly twist to it. What I mostly get is the musk. I get the florals. It does have a sweetness, so it has a note of tonka bean in there and praline. I don't know if I pick out those notes specifically, but it does have a beautiful sweetness to it. It also has a note of leather, which again, I don't pick out at all. It's just a very uplifting, transparent, clean, musky fragrance with a sweet and floral twist. And if you are a clean and fresh fragrance lover and you've never smelt this one, highly recommend you try getting a sample of it, because I think you will probably like it. Now, I'm yet to try other fragrances from the brand. They have just released one called Sparkling Sugar, I believe. And I know there are others in the collection that I've heard people talk about. And this one is definitely a lifer in my collection. Once I go through the bottle, I will be purchasing another. But have you tried anything from Clean Reserve? And if so, which ones are your favorite? Because I'm really interested to know, because I do want to order some more from the brand. And last, but definitely not least, we have Tom Ford Velvet Orchid. And I'm going to turn the bottle, and I'm hoping you can see the fill line, but it is right at the bottom. And if you can't see that fill line, it is pretty much right down to the bottom. And fun fact, this used to be my signature scent. This was before I had a vast collection. I probably only had about 10 to 20 fragrances in my collection at that point. I say only, that's still a lot. But this was definitely my signature scent, and I adored it. Now, I do still like Velvet Orchid, but I haven't reached for this in probably over a year. So the dent was made prior to having a more vast collection. But I do think Tom Ford fragrances in general are super, super special. More specifically, the versions that are either in this bottle or the ones that are out of the private collection, because for the price point, they smell so unique and the quality is incredible. Like, I absolutely love Black Orchid. I like Velvet Orchid. I think it was called Soleil Orchid. It was in the rose gold bottle. I like Noir. I like Noir Femme. I like the new Noir Extreme. So yeah, incredible fragrances. However, I just don't really reach for this one in the more. It is quite potent and can be very polarizing. And I can understand why these are Marmite fragrances for so many people. But to me, this does smell super sexy. And I think Black Orchid, so not this one, but Black Orchid on a man is one of the sexiest scents ever. My fiance wears Black Orchid sometimes, and I just absolutely love it on him. There are so many notes in this. You've got rum, you've got honey, you've got orchid. I don't know, it's so complex you can't pick out all of the individual notes, so it's quite hard to describe how it physically smells. But the type of occasion I could see someone wearing something like this is more of an evening occasion, it's more of a date night or a black tie formal. Although I used to wear this to work, I used to wear it everywhere, but it is for me kind of a little bit femme fatale, quite sexy and quite edgy. But yeah, how do you feel about the Tom Ford fragrances, specifically Velvet Orchid? Please do let me know down in the comments. One thing I will say is when I use this up, I'm not sure I will actually repurchase it. Maybe I will in the future for nostalgic reasons, but I don't reach for it like I say. So whether or not I'll repurchase it, I am not sure. So that was it for the fragrances in my collection with the biggest dent. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I do have dents in so many of my fragrances, but it's only about 10 to 20% in a lot of them. So I wanted to show you the ones that truly have the biggest dents. But what I most want to know is what fragrances in your collection have the biggest dents? Are you team dent, want to use it up, you love seeing the juice go down? Or do you try and spread your wares through your collection? Please do let me know down in the comments because I find it super, super interesting. But one thing I do want to do this year is not buy so many fragrances for my collection and actually start to use them a lot more, because it does make me a little bit sad seeing fragrances that are pretty much nearly full. But they're fragrances I love, it's just I have too much choice, which I shouldn't complain about. I know it's a very privileged position to be in. However, I do get sad when I see the juices quite full in the bottles. So yeah, I'd love to hear what your collection's like and what kind of dent you have in your collection too. So I hope you enjoyed this video because it did make me think about my collection a little bit more. Something I'm very conscious about is over consuming. So I'm trying to operate on a rule that if I get 4 new fragrances, I have to declutter 4. Whether or not that will work this year, we shall see. But anyway, thank you so much for watching today. It has been a pleasure as always. I hope to see you all in a future video to come. Have the best day. Thanks so much and goodbye.